Good day. Welcome everyone to the second edition already for Startup Stories. Today, this beautiful Friday, we're here with William from ADI, Applied Drone Innovations. First let's say a little bit of a remembrance. Startup Stories is the 2 weeks podcast we'll be doing every 2 weeks, where we tell people about some startups, get to know the startups, get their pitfalls, get their successes, and also their struggles. William, tell me a bit about yourself. Tell me a bit about ADI and about yourself, actually.
So my name's William Simmons. I came over to Holland to study when I was 18, actually, so 9 years ago. And we were originally 4 friends in an aeronautical engineering stream. Did an engineering entrepreneurship minor and got introduced to the world of horticulture, and I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit that got me to really engage with that minor, and that was now 5 years ago, and today we're over 10 people and a strong company.
Cool, nice.
Which is nice.
So what is, just a quick summary, what is ADI doing?
Well, good question, because the drone bit in the name is slightly misleading. We do still have drones in our company, and we use drones, but it's taking a back seat, as Delft basically educated us. The value proposition was in the data set you give the grower. So the drone was just a medium for gathering data. We then basically became an applied computer vision company, and our best product at the moment is a box. It's a black box on a trolley there, and the growers put a tray in and press a button, so there's no drone involved there. But we're very much still ambitious about the future vision of drones flying around greenhouses.
Okay. So it is contained in the future vision, but now it's just a power word, actually.
Right.
Let's say it like that.
So we registered Agri-Data Innovations, but it doesn't have a kick to it, and as a recruitment tool, I think Applied Drone Innovations is good.
I can imagine, actually. if I heard the word drone, I think it triggers a lot of people.
For the customers as well, right? It opens doors for us. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, as for the first thing we'll be doing this podcast today, I get back to the whole story later. What do we have to celebrate today?
I think the best thing to celebrate is my co-founder and myself, Lucian Festlitz, my co-founder. We've got this far now. We've basically raised over 750,000 euros through customers, partners, Rabobank, like the NVO, and we haven't given away any percentage yet. So I think that's a really strong position, and we're speaking to investors next week who are going to make us an offer. So I think celebrating the 2 years that's got us to here without and still retaining our own company, I think is a good celebration point.
I think for sure it will be a great celebration. Would you mind opening the champagne?
Of course not.
Which is the best experience the entrepreneurs will be having at the podcast. Really cool. Then for when we look at that. It's quite pop, for sure. Thank you. So if we talk about ADI, you also mentioned a bit of your entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
So where did that start?
So my family, my mum's side of the family, you wouldn't.
Cheers, by the way.
Prost.
Prost.
Yeah, you wouldn't guess it, but my mum's maiden name's Panagakis, and she's from a family of Greek business people, and my granddad had a furniture company. My mum's side of the family had travel businesses. So at our Christmas dinners, there was always 4 or 5 business owners around the table. And at the age of about 14, I started selling tennis balls to local tennis clubs.
Oh, wow!
And I arrived in Holland and started Delft Clothing, which was trying to sell to the verenigings like T-shirts and stuff. And then when the engineering entrepreneurship minor happened, I thought, technical people.
What was the name of that minor?
Engineering entrepreneurship.
Oh, that was the actual name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And was it a certain faculty or?
Sorry, to clear that up, we were in Holland Hogeschool, aeronautical engineering.
All right.
So it's the aeronautical stream in Holland, which when I arrived in Holland at the age of 18, I thought I was at the TU Delft.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that a small city like Delft could have 2 aeronautical streams. And I arrived at this very modern faculty and thought, well, this is not the 70s architecture of the TU Delft.
No.
Yeah, it was a Hogeschool.
Yeah.
And that's where it all started.
It's really nice, and I know the building actually because cool, really nice. Yeah, so I was actually intrigued a bit by you started selling tennis balls. How come?
I don't know. I think the independence of entrepreneurship's always attracted me. Like the be your own boss, and it's so attached to adding value, right? Like if you're adding value to the world, people will pay you for what you're doing. So I think that's probably what stimulated me down this path.
Okay, so wow, yeah, okay, so it's more of a moral sense of purpose, I guess, for doing something which you think is adding value to the world, or?
To be completely honest, that's developed more recently as we started to build into our pitch the benefit for the planet of for intensive agriculture to become more sustainable. And like David Attenborough just spoke about greenhouse cultivation in one of his recent documentaries, and like that's definitely a big part of what we're doing now. Like the environmental impact and the societal impact. But in all honesty, 5 or 10 years ago, it was about becoming wealthy.
Yeah, well, I think as a child selling tennis balls, you might, think about becoming wealthy. So to continue the journey of your entrepreneurial experience, then you went to Delft. Why did you went to Delft in the first place?
It was actually a skiing accident. I broke my femur skiing when I was 18 and got helicoptered off the mountain. And I did my maths and physics A-levels from a hospital bed. And I got an A in maths and physics, but a C in philosophy. So I couldn't get into British unis for aerospace. And then I saw the what I thought was the TU Delft turned out to be in Holland Home School. Applied to that over Studielink and came to Holland.
Wait, but did you go to the In Holland by mistake, or what?
Essentially, yes. Yes. I arrived at the introduction week and found out where I was, and they said, "Oh, you can bridge over to the TU." But then I actually started to see a lot of value in the applied sciences approach, because especially for entrepreneurship, because I actually get worried sometimes with TU Delft masters graduates we employ that they're too theoretical. And the applied element can be a lot more lucrative in the short term.
So have you always been kind of an aviation focused person? Or?
I think so. I did like quite a lot of, I've flown gliders before, and like we were really into drones when we were, that's actually how it all started. Drones were our like main toy when we were in our first year of uni. Getting into trouble.
You had a group of friends which are like the drone crew or something?
We all lived together. The 4 founders of ADI all lived together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we lived, do you know the Schie, the big canal? So there's Jachtpad is one of the streets along the Schie. Only like 2 minutes out of Delft past DSM. And we had a lovely house there with 4 of us, and that was our drone factory at the beginning.
How did you actually get to know each other?
In Holland and the EE minor, so it was the engineering entrepreneurship minor. Lucian, my co-founder, was like just the first cool guy that I saw in Holland. He was walking around with his longboard, and I was like, all right, he's going to be a nice friend. And then there was one other British guy called Chris, so I made friends with him. Just a natural little group of friends formed. And also, I think I grew up in a family like of 6 people, and there were always friends and family around at the house, so I kind of recreated that here with a family of students living in the house.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you guys like got into the house together, and then you did an entrepreneurship minor together, and I thought, well, let's try it.
So I remember a conversation with Lucian in like 2017 when Monkey Wings, which was another startup we worked at, just got funding, and Lucian had done his 2nd year internship at Monkey Wings. And at that point, we'd already flown a drone in the greenhouse. And I had the conversation with Lucian that the only thing that would stop us being successful is if we stopped doing it. Like persistence is the one thing you can correlate to success. So we just tried to keep it in the background. And at one point, 3 of the founders were paying Lucian €200 a month out of our own like part-time jobs, so that Lucian could be full-time flying drones in greenhouses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we like persistence was the aim of the game. Like, how do we keep it ticking over until some point it's sustainable?
Yeah, so you kind of bought Lucian in that way.
Pretty much.
Oh, that's okay.
But he really wanted to, like, he always wanted to be a pilot, and the fact he could fly drones for a living, he was loving that.
Yeah, I can imagine that you would be loving that, I think, for sure. So, Lucian was one of your housemates, and 2 other founders.
Yeah.
And you adapted to Lucian's idea, or was it the other guy's idea?
So originally, when we first started the EE minor, we wanted to make jellyfish protection systems for the south of France.
which is something different.
Very different. And then it was actually like the faculty wanted it to be more aviation based, and one of the horticultural directors of that study said we've got an application for drones in greenhouses, and Lucian said we should really consider this, and we were all on board, but actually two of the founders got a bit fed up with the way that In Holland had us doing this. They were using us as a publicity stunt for a long time, and not in a bad way, but they wanted to start jobs and didn't like the risk of startups, basically.
Okay.
Probably paying Lucian's salary.
Yeah, as well. I think. Yeah. Okay.
It takes a certain kind of person as well to be to risk not just getting a job after uni is finished.
But did that actually feel you make kind of uncertain about your whole startup vision on that? Because, well, if your faculty isn't really believing in you, would you yourself?
Yeah, so it's to be completely honest, I had doubts about the drone in the CAS thing anyway, because we were trying to build our own autonomous drone and multispectral camera, and the hardware challenges there are massive, and you haven't even got added value yet. You just focused on developing complex hardware.
Yeah.
So there's a reason that Delft cottoned onto the fact that actually the value is in the data and analyzing that data. So I think ADI had to develop somewhat into having a genuine business case, because for a long time it was boys playing with drones in greenhouses.
Yeah. So, well, I think that's quite interesting actually. So you kind of, with your four founders, which were your housemates actually, which is pretty nice actually. So I think people from the live stream can look at their housemates right now and think, well, maybe you're my next co-founder. So, did you roll out a minor into Delft or what?
A bit longer than that. So I've worked as a teacher in Holland for a while. Lucian and I have both worked for other startups. I worked for a year and a half as a mechanical engineer at Rubicon Bionics, which is a Delft startup making exoskeleton and empowered prosthetic technology. So it really was a long process until we could turn it into a business. And it was really in 2018 when we joined the validation lab. We had a small product and service running at one orchid grower where we made disease and pest maps for the grower.
Okay.
And Delft realized that map was the product, not the drone. And we really engaged with the Delft programs, and then it was since sort of last year, midway through last year, that I've been able to go full time and really engage. So it's taken quite a long time.
So it has been like a really big side thing for the last.
Honestly, the keeping. That's one last week when the Breeze were asked how to keep, do you start a startup whilst studying? The benefit whilst you're studying is the affordable loss element, because you're getting student fee or your parents are paying whatever it is that gives you an income to study.
Yeah.
And you can do half-time study, half-time startup if you like.
But when you lose?
When you lose, how are you supposed to do that? Because, so that's why it was actually this chap called Arthur Tolsma, who was coaching us at the time, said, why don't you keep your affordable loss by you all getting jobs and supporting Lucian to continue? So Lucian was the only one without a full-time job, basically.
Okay. So, but you guys had a full-time job.
Yeah, the other three founders all had full-time jobs to basically subsidize Lucian. And then the moment we could get funding, I went part-time. So you took plans and transitions from. By the way, if everybody worked full-time, then when did you put time into the nighttime? That was the benefit of living together. So it was beers and nighttime working. We'd love it. I used to couldn't wait to get home because the evenings were table tennis, making camera equipment together and strategizing our next part of the project.
Cool.
And also at that stage, we were very focused on how to get Lucian employed by In Holland to work full-time for ADI. Because we kept getting told about these educational research grants where they're stimulating research within whole schools. So we actually got a project called Hypergreen, which was a 2-year educational research project that those four founders, us four founders, wrote in our student house. And In Holland was actually supposed to write it. We wrote it and then got employed by In Holland to run high precision greenhouse farming. That was what it was.
But that was kind of your first steps into your own startup, right?
It was a little bit controversial within In Holland because it was meant to be researchers doing it, and they had these 4 students, especially because Lucian still hadn't graduated.
Yeah. Oh well,
So,
if it was able, it's quite perfect, right?
I think it was. And actually, I have to give credit to Kok Hemskirk, who's got his own company at Robo Valley, and he's a lecturat of robotica in Holland, and he was the one that said, like, that valley of death you need to get over is big, because you are flying drones in greenhouses, like, leverage the whole school system and research grants, and that really helped.
Oh, if he's watching this, I think he'll feel very aroused. Well, yeah. So the drones were here. You were in. Did you get you got the coaching program with Delft then?
Yeah, because we did the validation lab and then the accelerator.
Ah, okay. And then you went into the building.
So in the summer of 2018, we did the validation lab. Then after the validation lab, we took our validated product and service to Fabian from Rabobank, who's walks around here a lot, and he advised us on the Rabobank AIL, which is the subordinated innovation loan of 150,000. We applied for that at the end of 2018 with all of our effort put into it, because that was a make or break moment. Are we going to have to get jobs, or can we continue at ADI? And luckily we succeeded in all of that. So January 2019 we got 150k from Rabobank,
which was the
trigger. We got our first office in Delft. We kicked Roy out of his Ernst & Young office because he had Ernst & He was really unhappy about that. But then we're now in our 4th office at Delft. In 18 months we've just gone from strength to strength. Well, the last office move was unnecessary. We were only there for 2 months because of Corona. We needed a bigger office.
So you're working with 12 full time, right?
So it's a good question. We've spent all afternoon on our HR planning for 2021 because we've got 16 heads to manage, but loads of part timers and freelancers, and it's a nightmare. We need to make full-time team members a big priority. So
this is quite a personal question, which is what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. Then you have this startup going on, and you love the innovation, the new ideas coming in, the pushing your company vision forward, and then the team gets bigger. What are your thoughts on that? Is it because you still get a lot of more HR management tasks instead of, I guess, innovation, execution tasks? How do you find that? What's your experience about that?
Yeah, the first big challenge is the HR, the financial burden of increasing HR. So when I worked at Monkey Wings, I saw their bankruptcy coming 18 months prior, because if you commit a 30,000 euro burn rate and you've only got 300k, 10 months and you're done for. And it's also, if you sign fixed term contracts with people, it's going to be very difficult to leverage yourself out of that. So the first thing that we like to use was interns, part-time students, because they need less security from the company.
And they're cheap.
But then in terms of actually managing all that HR stuff, we got a really nice lady called Elizabeth Shellikens, I think that's how you pronounce her name. And she's got a company called Pateva Consultancy, and she does HR help for young companies. And I made a post on Slack about this, and now a few Delft companies actually use her services for contracts, payrolling, all of the stuff that is actually wasting a founder's time, because they should be selling stuff, focusing on core technology.
That's the thing, but that's most of the time what they like doing.
And what they're good at as well, because you're training yourself to learn contract law, which is so unnecessary.
Well, to people studying contract law, it's okay.
There shouldn't be too much at the TU Delft. You guys are all doing interesting things.
I think people from not TU Delft will now be triggered behind the camera. But because I was wondering about that, because people they lose motivation, and I think in such a vibrant startup, which I think ADI is, and which you've moved to offices, you in the last year you really scaled up, right? If you're going from a bigger team like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was from really realizing what we do as well that helped so much, because the growers didn't want to hear about drones. They want to hear how you're going to improve that. It's a business-to-business proposal, and they want to hear how you're going to improve their bottom line at the end of the day, make their greenhouse better. And once we realized that we're actually adding value through applied computer vision, basically, and addressable data sets for the grower, we really took off. But the big challenge now is, and this is something I still don't quite know how to frame, because startups get taught to sell first and then build the solution. But any good management consultant would tell you, like, under promise and over deliver, and they're completely opposite. So
so you overpromised?
Well, that's really like, if you go as a startup that doesn't have the solution yet, you need to sell people the prospect of the solution and then build it. But that's our biggest challenge now, the amount of stuff we have to build. We've got 4 really big projects underway.
Okay.
Hence the need for full-timers. If anyone's looking for a job.
Yeah, so you can do a call to action if anyone is an active student. Feel free to send your email to ADI. Well, yeah. So tell me, you already mentioned like ADI is now, well, I will say over promising, but you have big future plans, right? Because you said we have to differ a lot. We're looking for people, so I think there's a need for growth here. Or
absolutely. So I'm speaking to investors at the moment, and we've got another MIT R&D coming up to try and basically take it to the next level. Because it's the more resources you can put in at an early stage, the better you can grow the company. But the real challenge is being realistic. Like, VCs want to see unicorn growth. And the world of horticulture is quite conservative. So we need the right kind of investor, but we think we found now like an industry partner that it's part of their vision to become data-driven and digitalized. So they're less aggressive than the VCs in terms of like 5 years, you have to have 100 million kind of thing.
So what for you would be, imagine, which don't always think about successes, but if the big partner would say, yes, ADI, join us, what will be in 5 years your perfect vision about ADI? Where do you want to be?
So
as a company?
Lucian and myself still running, he's the technical guy and the business guy, and that relationship's still fruitful and happy. And that would be one of my main things, is that we're still friends and that we like working at ADI.
So
fulfillment, and like, the last thing I want now is to have to go and send my CVs around after a failed startup. So like, actually just longevity of the company and enjoyment of what we're doing. But coupled with that, obviously, like today we just did our HR planning, and it turns out we need to double the team. So with that comes a big necessary capital to grow the team. So I think it is going to have to grow quite considerably.
So there's a new buy the whole Delft city to double the team.
But the goal is for like the future greenhouses in 10 years' time will be powered by ADI insights. So all the automation to be powered by insights, like Intel Inside for computers. We want powered by ADI as the data-driven horticultural sentiment.
And with drones.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Drones are a bit useless.
They've
got very short battery life, and the downwash of the drone is quite disturbing to the plants. And our best customer traction at the moment is in the world of opfakers, which is Dutch for like propagator, like young stage propagators. It's this the baby material for all the rest of the industry to grow their crop. So the people that take seeds or cuttings to the next stage. The drone really disturbs those. Like the downwash of the drone itself is not really for delicate plants.
So just a quick guess is if you guys realize there isn't a need for drones and drones aren't viable, would you change your name?
A part of me we've considered this a few times about changing the name. I do think drones will be in our vision to some extent, not at the young stage crops, but the orchids, for example. They want
big
drones.
Open.
There are greenhouses that are more suitable to it. But in terms of changing the name, I don't think it actually matters. Like people will know us as ADI. Branding will become ADI. Like IBM, International Business Machines, used to be about a couple of computers around the world. And their business model changed so much that people know IBM very well. The acronym is not so important.
So it's more about the brand name rather than the beachhead market you're first going into.
And also, business to business, I don't think they care. I really do not think these growers care what your acronym is. And everyone gets it wrong anyway. We get called ADDI, Advanced Drone Innovations. Like, we've been called Applied Drone Data Innovations before we even registered it at the KVK. So I don't think the name's so important.
Yeah, okay, wow. I guess I just, the first time I heard that name, I was like, oh, I just know if you're approaching farmers like this, they will be destructing the name just completely.
Yeah, they do. The Dutch farmers are struggling with it.
Yeah.
But just one thing about the drone, we do have these automated monorail systems that drive up and down the heating pipes in the greenhouses, which is a form of drone. It's not a flying drone.
So that's the little bit of just short. The concept of ADI is like monitoring crops, providing data, visualizing data, which you do by going through the heat.
We've got multiple ways of collecting the data, but in essence, it's exactly what you said. Like, we collect data, we analyze the data, and then we present addressable insights to greenhouse management or greenhouse machinery for automation.
Yeah.
And effectively, that data collection can be done. We're working with 2 different drone companies at the moment as a data collection partner, but the drones just aren't ready. So we have our monorail that drives up and down the heating pipe. We have our box that you might have seen, the germination analysis box. And we've got this thing we call our USP, which is the Universal Sensor Package. And that can go, it could eventually go under a drone, but it goes in a box at the moment on our monorail. And now we're looking at attaching to another device that I can't actually say. But there's basically loads of ways to gather the data. The trick is gather the data.
Guess now in the chat what the other would be. Yeah, cool. Thank you for your explanation. I was kind of wondering how you would do that. Then a bit of a actual question. Well, in the present times, it's quite a thing right now. Is ADI? What is the experience with ADI and the COVID pandemic going on right now?
So initially, it was like some kind of strange snow day where like everything was sort of stopping. So there's like 2 weeks of it's a big holiday now at the very beginning of the pandemic. And I was actually in the UK, and then realized quickly like it's difficult to run a business without employees and customers. Like, they're quite crucial. So really engaged again with like, how are we going to do this? And luckily, my dad was a management consultant and partner at Accenture for like 20 years. So he's an expert in crisis and change management. And he's like, if you can get your shit together now, everybody is going to listen to what you have to say, basically. Like, there's so many people who don't know what to do. So I took it as an opportunity to like call the customers we had and really try and think about what we were doing at the moment. And it turned out like that pandemic gave all of the growers a push towards automation and digitalization, because relying on migrant labor from Poland each year is not particularly sustainable. So the flower industry struggled a little bit, but the food industry was thriving as always.
Oh, so you got the double-edged sword, kind of.
Yeah, double-edged sword, and actually we got some of the biggest contracts we've got with growers in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge is managing a team of remote people. That's really difficult.
I can guess the challenge, which comes back to the success you've been celebrating in this whole journey actually, which you mentioned at the start. William, thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation actually about what you can do with drones, or maybe no drones, which is kind of a cool story actually too. Which I think for people watching with their housemates, look at each other. You might want to do a house startup. Maybe that name will be copyrighted. No, no. Maybe So I see a sticker laying there. So, as our little thing in our podcast series, we have a gadget kind of theme section. So we got a sticker from ADI, where will be the place where we will be.
Where are you going to put the stickers?
Okay, where put the sticker? I think like here. Is it camera cool? Yeah, I think ADI is now officially legendary in the Yestel students office. All right, so thanks everyone for listening to Startup Stories with William today from ADI. I hope everyone enjoyed this session. For sure I did, so I hope you do
Yeah,
too.
it was fun.
And well, see you in 2 weeks.
Tot de volgende.